Well, there's quite a few Hollywood movies about missions to recover priceless artworks that were looted by the Nazis in the Second World War. But not many of them have been as compelling as what's unfolded in real life over the last week in Argentina. An online property listing for a house in a beachside town showed an artwork hanging on one wall. That artwork, Portrait of a Lady, was last seen in the 1940s when it was one of many such works stolen from a Dutch Jewish art dealer by the Nazis. Dutch journalists revealed the news and Argentinian authorities raided the property, but the painting had already been moved. In recent hours, it's just been surrendered to police by the owner of the property, whose father was a senior aide to Hermann Goering, the second most powerful official in Nazi Germany. Sydney lawyer George Newhouse was part of the legal team behind the only successful attempt to recover a Nazi-looted artwork from a gallery in Australia. And he says the story of this painting, Portrait of a Lady, is extraordinary.
Look, this is an amazing story about a lost 18th century painting which was stolen by the Nazis during World War II, and it was recovered in Argentina, of all places, after being spotted on a real estate listing. It's the most astounding story.
We know that post-World War II, a number of Nazis fled to Argentina, but how did it wind up in a property listing? And when it was listed, what did people realise?
Well, the news reports seem to indicate that the painting was missing until last month when it was spotted hanging on an online real estate listing in Argentina. And apparently it was discovered by Dutch journalists who were researching a story and the history of a Nazi lawyer called Friedrich Cadogan. Now, apparently Cadogan was responsible, amongst other things, during World War II for the management of confiscated Jewish property and was a senior legal advisor to Goering. Now, Goering played a critical role in the looting of Jewish property. In April 1938, Goering issued the decree regarding the reporting of Jewish property, which stated that no later than the 30th of June 1938, every Jew in the Reich was required to assess all property owned, domestic and foreign, and to report these findings to the Nazi authorities. Now, Goering was well and truly up to his neck in stolen Jewish property, and it just seems coincidental that one of his senior legal advisors has apparently ended up with a looted painting.
It is an extraordinary story, as you mentioned. How difficult is it these days to recover goods looted by the Nazis in World War II? Has it become more difficult with the passage of time?
Well, yes. What we've found over the years is that as memories fade and as individuals who were alive at the time of the war have passed away, it's becoming more and more difficult to make claims. And of course, many people whose property was stolen did not survive the Holocaust and therefore were unable to maintain claims. So many galleries and art dealers around the world were able to get away with the looted and stolen artworks.
The denial is also interesting in this case because fairly soon after the picture was put up online, it was taken down, and in fact the woman who advertised the flat with the picture of this painting for rent, who was the daughter of this late Nazi financier, has been under house arrest with her husband since Tuesday over this matter. Tell us about second-generational attitudes when confronted with evidence of stolen artworks.
Look, my experience here in Australia is mostly with galleries. We don't have a vast array of European looted and stolen property. At least we don't know of many claimed artworks in this country. But we have found that Australia has been reluctant to establish a national process like a central registry or a formal legal framework to implement the Washington Conference principles on Nazi confiscated art. Many countries, particularly in Europe and in America, have implemented these policies, which does make it a more fair and just process. Australia is one of 24 countries that have made little or no progress in implementing the Washington Principles. And I think that that is a shame on our own nation. It is incredibly difficult for the heirs of those who've had property stolen or looted by the Nazis to recover them in this country. There have been very, very few successful claims.
You have said in the past that galleries could take a more proactive approach to this. What does proactive mean?
Well, as I mentioned, the Washington Principles, there are 10 principles that set out a fair process, identification. We need to take steps in this country to actually try and identify which artworks could be looted or stolen and given their provenance. There needs to be disclosure. There is a central register of looted art. In Europe, it's called lootedart.com. We don't have it in Australia. We don't have an equivalent. There then needs to be alternative dispute resolution and due process established. We don't have that in Australia. We rely on the goodwill of galleries to negotiate fairly. Now, we are laggards internationally in this area.
Incredible. That is Sydney lawyer George Newhouse speaking to ABC News Radio's Sarah Dingle.